I think by now that most people know what Jump Force is, and I assume a lot of people will also know what J-Stars is. But what you may not know is that these are only the latest entries in a long line of crossover Shonen Jump games.
Way back in 1989, Famicom Jump Hero Retsuden released on the Nintendo Famicom. This game was a Shonen Jump crossover RPG, not fighting game, but it sparked the creation of many Shonen Jump crossover games. But the one we're concerned with is the first crossover fighting game, which wouldn't be released until 16 years later on August 8th, 2005, called Jump Superstars. As you may have guessed, Jump Superstars is a crossover platform fighting game akin to Super Smash Bros., except its roster consists of characters from popular Shonen Jump manga series.
So in today's video, I'm going to take a look at Jump Superstars to see just what the first Shonen Jump crossover fighting game was like.
To start off with, Jump Superstars released as a Nintendo DS exclusive in Japan on August 8th, 2005, and released in the United States... never.
Well, apparently it did, but that was according to Wikipedia, and there was no actual source, so take that for what you will.
But the fact of the matter is, the game was never released in English. There's also no English patch available online either, and I can't read Japanese, so I'm gonna have to try my best to beat this game.
However, according to most reviewers, this game was pretty generally well received. So despite the language barrier, I'm excited to see what it's like.
Loading up the main menu, I have no idea what any of this says, but after navigating around for a bit, I think I've figured most of it out. There's the story mode, local multiplayer mode, customization, which we'll discuss later, and settings. There's one more menu option, but I have no clue what it is. I have no way of testing out the multiplayer because who would want to play this with me? So let's just jump right into the story mode. Again, I have no idea what any of this is saying, but it seems like a pretty basic story. There are these different worlds, some bad guys are threatening them, so anime heroes from all walks of life must come together to save the day. This is done through various different missions that each have their own unique objectives. Some range from simply defeating the enemy, to others such as having to destroy all of the walls of the stage. This is probably where the language barrier has the most effect, as if you don't know Japanese, then you won't know what the objective of that stage is. But luckily I found a guide online that translated every single mission. Before we get any further into story mode, let's discuss the basic gameplay and how it differs from other platform fighters. The basic gameplay is, well, basic. You can move around, jump, perform different basic attacks depending which direction of the D-pad you're holding down. You can perform special attacks, which, just like the basic attacks, have different effects depending on your directional input. You can perform metered special attacks, you can block, and finally you can punt. The fact that it's running on a DS doesn't help because the gameplay feels pretty clunky and slow. Now here's when things get more interesting. Jump Superstars has its own unique mechanic called Koma. Koma means panel in Japanese, and in-game, players can use different manga panels to achieve different effects. On the bottom screen of the DS are 20 squares, which can be used to build a deck using various different Koma. There are 3 different types of Koma, each ranging in effect and size. Help Koma take up 1 square, and when activated by tapping them on the bottom of the screen, will boost or help your character in some way, such as healing or giving them a damage boost. Support Koma are 2 to 3 squares large, and when activated summon a support character who will quickly appear on screen and help out your character, such as by attacking or blocking enemies. Finally, Battle Koma are the largest, and take from 4 up to 7 squares and correspond to playable characters. By activating a Battle Koma, you will simply switch characters. Players are able to customize their own decks and place their Koma on the screen however they please, and then can use them in-game. This seems like a good segue into talking about the character roster, which is really solid and features 34 different playable characters.
So who are those 34 playable characters, you may be asking? Eve, Ichigo Kurosaki, Bobo, Don Patch, Kazuki Muto, Alan Walker, Goku Vegeta, Gohan Piccolo, Gotenks, Arale Norimaki, Dr. Mashihito, Gintoki Sakata, Gon Freaks, Jotaro Kujo, Dio Brando, Tsunayoshi Sawada, Ryotsu Kankichi, Naruto Uzumaki, Sasuke Uchiha, Sakura Haruno, Kakashi Hatake, Monkey D. Luffy, Zoro Roronoa, Nami Sanji, Nico Robin, Jaguar Junichi, Kimura Kenshin, Yo Asakura, Ana Kiyoyama, Yami Yugi, and Yusuke Urameshi.
In addition to those playable characters, characters appear from over 26 different manga series in the form of Koma. For a fighting game on the DS released in 2005, this is a really good roster. However, again, it is a fighting game on the DS released in 2005, so the characters do feel pretty similar in terms of weight, speed, and hit power, but their attacks and specials separate them enough that I'm able to prefer some characters over others.
Now that we've gotten the formalities out of the way, is this game actually good? I'd say that it definitely feels like a Japanese-only fighting game developed for the Nintendo DS that released in 2005.
Jump Superstars performed well in Japan, selling around 200,000 copies in its first week of release. It then went on to become one of Japan's best-selling games of 2005, garnering over 450 to 550,000 copies sold, on Metacritic averaging an 80 Metascore and a 9.8 user score.
Honestly, I'm pretty surprised that it received this well of reviews. I'm not saying it's bad, but this definitely had to have been in part due to recency bias, especially considering this was one of the few solid fighting games released on the DS. Like seriously, Bebo M, the best fighting game I've ever played besides Super Smash Bros. Melee? Seriously? Do better, Bebo M. Do better.
The game doesn't hold up very well at all, especially if you're used to new platform fighters like Smash Ultimate or hell, even Smash 4 on 3DS. The fighting system is fine, the coma system is unique, but I found it difficult to juggle searching your bottom screen and then trying to press a panel, all while trying to fight opponents. Not to mention, outside of the coma customization, this game is really repetitive. The story missions all feel the same. Half of them are just defeat your enemy or get more KOs than your enemy, and those types of matches just boil down to who can spam special moves quicker. The rest of the missions are just boring challenges like destroy more barrels than your opponent. And to add insult to injury, the story isn't even interesting. I think repetitive missions can kinda work on a handheld game, but playing this at home, not on DS, it gets very boring very quickly.
It really feels as if it was designed as a portable game, which it was. The missions are doled out in bite-sized chunks, the mechanics aren't too complicated, so I feel weird knocking it points for that, but I just don't see any reason to play it nowadays. Again, it's not to say this is a bad game, but I really can't recommend this in good conscience unless you can read Japanese and are really into subpar fighting games because they feature your favorite anime characters. Which, if I'm being honest, there is a player base for, considering Jump Force exists.